Last week, my girlfriend got a 30% raise. She didn't work weekends. She didn't take on massive new projects. She literally just sent one email stating she had an offer from a competitor, and instantly, her company magically found a budget that didn't exist the day before. Older managers call this disloyal, but they're missing the point. My girlfriend didn't betray her company. For our parents, a job was a marriage. You stayed through the good and the bad. But in 2026, a job is just a monthly subscription. You pay us in money, we pay you in skills. And the second that transaction stops making sense, we hit cancel. Let's strip away all the emotional corporate guilt trips and look at the pure, cold math. Because when you run the numbers, staying loyal to a company doesn't just look naive, it looks like financial suicide. To understand this, let's look at two different professionals starting out in the modern corporate landscape. Let's call them Leo and Chloe. They are both 24 years old, highly skilled, and they both land the exact same entry-level role at different digital marketing agencies, starting at a base salary of $70,000 a year. Leo believes in the traditional mindset. He wants to show his dedication, build deep roots, and prove his loyalty. He works hard, hits his targets, and earns a consistent, solid 3% corporate raise every single year. Chloe, on the other hand, understands the subscription model. She stays for 18 months, builds a solid portfolio, and then switches to a competitor who is desperate for proven talent. Because companies always allocate a much larger budget to acquire new hires than to retain current staff, they offer Chloe a massive premium just to sign on. Look at how the numbers split over a 7-year timeline. In year 1, both Leo and Chloe start at exactly $70,000. By year 3, Leo gets his standard corporate raises and makes $74,000, but Chloe hops to a new company and jumps to $88,000. At year 5, Leo is sitting at $78,000, while Chloe crosses the six-figure mark at $105,000. And by year 7, Leo is making $83,000, but Chloe is pulling in $125,000. By year 7, the gap between the loyal employee and the subscription hopper is over $40,000 a year. But it gets much worse, because every time you hop, your new salary becomes your absolute baseline for the next negotiation. Over a 20-year career, this compounding math shifts dramatically. We are talking about a lifetime earnings difference of well over $1 million. Corporate loyalty is the financial equivalent of keeping your life savings in a bank account that pays 1% interest, while the bank across the street is offering 5%. It is not stability, it is a financial penalty. The corporate world operates on a weird paradox. They will spend $50,000 on recruiters and sign-on bonuses to replace a worker, but they will fight tooth and nail to deny a $5,000 raise to the loyal employee who is already doing the job. Once you realize that the talent acquisition budget is completely separate from the employee retention budget, the illusion of corporate loyalty shatters. To fully comprehend why this shift happened, we have to look at the historical architecture of employment. Corporate executives love to complain that the younger generation has no work ethic, but they completely forget that they are the ones who rewrote the rules of the game in the first place. From the middle of the 20th century up until the late 1990s, employment functioned under a completely different psychological contract. It was a long-term structural agreement. You entered a company as a young adult, held the rail, kept your head down, and in exchange for your unwavering dedication, the machine took care of you. It guaranteed you a robust pension that would fund your retirement. It offered rock-solid job security. It was a lifetime subscription that both sides honored. But during the corporate boom of the 1980s and 90s, executive mindsets shifted radically. Chief financial officers and board members looked at their balance sheets and realized a cold truth. If they cut the power to those long-term commitments, their stock prices would surge, and their personal quarterly bonuses would skyrocket. So they systematically dismantled the infrastructure of loyalty. They killed the traditional corporate pension. They replaced it with the 401k plan, which is essentially a corporate way of saying, we are no longer responsible for your retirement. Then came the corporate layoffs of 2008 and the sweeping workplace shifts that followed. An entire generation of dedicated workers did exactly what society told them to do. They sacrificed family time, worked late nights, and stayed loyal for 15, 20, or 25 years. And yet, the moment the global economy stumbled, those exact same companies didn't hesitate for a single second. They threw thousands of loyal employees out the door with a 2-week severance package just to protect their profit margins. The current workforce did not read about this economic betrayal in history textbooks. They watched it happen in real time at their own kitchen tables. They watched their parents, exhausted and broken, staring at layoff notices just months before their corporate benefits were supposed to fully vest. The unwritten contract of career-long loyalty was not broken by the young professionals of today. They simply arrived at the economic landscape, looked at the remnants of the broken system, and refused to pretend that corporate loyalty was ever a two-way street. If a company can terminate your employment with a single email on a random Tuesday morning because their quarterly projections missed the mark by 1%, then your employment is not a relationship, it is a transaction, it is a utility bill, and if they can cancel you at will, you have every right to treat them exactly the same way. So, why did older generations tolerate this lopsided arrangement for so long? Why did they stay anchored to a single desk for decades? It comes down to two major forces: corporate identity and deep information asymmetry. For previous generations, the company you worked for was not just a source of income, it was the absolute core of your social identity. People proudly called themselves a Ford man or an IBM worker. They wore the company lapel pins, attended corporate picnics, and built their entire ego around their job title. If they quit or switched paths, they felt like they were losing an actual piece of who they were as human beings. But in the modern economic landscape, identity has become completely decoupled from the corporate cubicle. A 24-year-old worker today doesn't find their purpose in the spreadsheet they manage for a mid-tier logistics firm. Their real identity lives completely outside of those working hours. They see themselves as a digital freelancer, a competitive gamer, a creative video editor, or an active member of a global online community. When your ego and your self-worth are no longer tied to the name on your corporate building, you can view your job with absolute clarity. You stop viewing your boss as a parental figure you need to please, and you start viewing them as a client who is currently leasing your time. This emotional detachment allows you to make completely rational, objective financial decisions. It turns a stressful career move into a simple business calculation. The second major shift is the total destruction of information asymmetry. For decades, corporations possessed a massive structural weapon: absolute salary secrecy. You sat in an office for 5 years, having absolutely no idea what the professional sitting 3 feet away from you was making. Management actively discouraged staff from discussing compensation, masking it under the guise of professional etiquette. That secrecy was a highly deliberate strategy. It allowed companies to underpay their most productive, loyal workers, while hiring fresh talent at market rates, keeping the total payroll artificially depressed. Today, that weapon has been completely neutralized. The veil of corporate secrecy has evaporated. A young professional can log onto decentralized forums, browse transparent Glassdoor data, or scroll through crowdsourced salary databases to discover the exact, precise market rate for their specific role, skill set, and geographic location in under 5 minutes. When a company tries to tell a worker that there is no budget for an inflation adjustment, that worker can immediately pull up live job listings showing that competitors are paying 30% more for the exact same responsibilities. The information gap is gone, and once you eliminate the mystery, you eliminate the control. Let's look at exactly how this psychological shift manifests in the real world through a highly common corporate scenario. Consider an experienced technical support specialist named Ryan. Ryan graduated a few years ago and took a position at a software firm for $60,000 a year. He is exceptionally good at his job, streamlines the ticketing system, and single-handedly increases client satisfaction scores by 20%. At his annual review, Ryan presents his data and requests a well-deserved salary adjustment to bring him to $75,000, which is the current market baseline for his level of expertise. His manager smiles, nods, and delivers the classic corporate speech. Ryan, you are a core asset to this team. We love your energy. But unfortunately, due to macroeconomic headwinds and strict departmental budgets, corporate has capped our annual adjustments at 4%. Our hands are completely tied. Ryan doesn't get angry. He doesn't argue. He politely thanks his manager, goes home, and opens his laptop. He activates his network, applies to 3 open positions at competing software firms, and within 72 hours, lands an interview. A week later, he holds a formal offer from a direct competitor for $80,000 a year, complete with remote work flexibility and comprehensive health coverage. The very next morning, Ryan submits his formal 2-week notice. He politely declines any counter offers, packs his laptop, and moves on to his new $80,000 role. But here is where the absolute hypocrisy of the corporate machine really shines. His old manager goes on LinkedIn and writes a long, emotional post about how this generation has zero loyalty. Meanwhile, because the department is completely paralyzed without Ryan, HR panics. They are forced to hire an external replacement, but because the actual market rate is public knowledge, they have to hire the new guy at $85,000 a year, plus a $10,000 fee for the external recruiter. They literally spent almost $100,000 to replace the exact same talent they could have kept for 75. They didn't save money, they just paid the ego tax. Treating your career like a subscription service does not mean you should randomly walk into your boss's office tomorrow and aggressively demand a massive raise without a backup plan. In the digital economy, you cannot successfully cancel a bad subscription unless you have alternative options lined up to take its place. True career leverage is built quietly, systematically, and entirely behind the scenes. The ultimate objective of the modern worker is to transition from a position of dependency to a position of absolute optionality. When you rely entirely on a single corporate entity for your survival, your healthcare, and your identity, you are completely trapped. You are forced to accept whatever tiny 3% crumbs they decide to drop from the table because your fear of losing the job overrides your logical mind. To break that cycle, you must treat yourself exactly like a sovereign business entity. A software company doesn't rely on just one single enterprise client to stay afloat. They diversify their revenue streams. You need to do the exact same thing. This starts with the aggressive acquisition of highly leveraged digital skills. Whether it is mastering advanced data analytics, learning scalable digital media creation, understanding automated workflow architectures, or building an independent freelance portfolio on the side, your skills must be completely portable. They cannot be tied to a specific internal software that only your current company uses. They must be highly valuable assets that you can package, market, and sell on the open market to the highest bidder at a moment's notice. Furthermore, you must prioritize building financial runway. The moment you secure 3 to 6 months of living expenses and an independent account, a profound psychological shift occurs. Your workplace anxiety drops to zero. Your posture changes. You no longer laugh at your manager's terrible jokes out of survival instinct. When you have financial runway and portable skills, you possess absolute leverage. You are no longer begging for a job. You are offering a high-tier service. And when your fear disappears, the company loses every single ounce of control they had over your life. Let's bring this entire narrative back to my girlfriend's 30% raise from last week. She didn't secure that massive financial jump because she got lucky, and she certainly didn't get it by working herself to the point of exhaustion for an organization that wouldn't notice if she left. She got it because she looked at the economic architecture of 2026 with absolute realism. She recognized that the old rules of corporate loyalty are a relic of a past world, a world designed to keep your labor artificially cheap while corporate profit margins expand. The system isn't broken. It is actually working exactly as it was designed to. It is an efficient, transaction-based machine. But if you want to survive inside of it, you have to stop playing by the outdated rules written by the people who profit from your compliance. Stop viewing your career as a lifelong marriage to a corporate entity that views you as an expendable line item on a spreadsheet. Start treating your skills like the premium asset they actually are. Deliver exceptional value, demand market rate compensation, and the absolute second the company stops paying for the premium tier, don't complain, don't argue, just hit cancel.